make me broken so I can be healed.
2.5 years ago, my nieces were crossing the street to a park and they were hit in the crosswalk. I remember standing with my sister while they were assessing the children in the ICU unit, and the doctor told us that Alyssa was not going to make it, that she had a severed spine, and that she had multiple brain bleeds and that it was not a survivable condition. Rain also had brain bleeds in her head and a fractured skull. And I just remember it was just a very trying time. But I held my sister's hand and we looked at that doctor and we refused to believe that. And we told him so. And he tried his hardest to prepare us for what he called the inevitable. Well, this is Rain and this is Alyssa. And as you can see, she was very much alive. And we're just so grateful that we chose to believe God's promises and not what the world said, not what the doctors said, but what God said. I found that it's just so much easier for me to believe in healing for others, for my family, for my friends, even a total stranger, than it is to believe that God will heal me.
I know you will heal me.
I became a Christian almost 14 years ago, and that was a very dark period in my life, and I was going through it a lot. And I remember having so much anxiety and fear and just stress. And my sister sat down with me and she gave me a scripture, and it was Mark 9:24. And she said, anytime you feel fear or stress, repeat this. It doesn't matter if you have to do it 1,000 times a day, repeat it and God will be there with you. And it was, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. On Sunday, the pastor did a very moving sermon for me. And it was about when Jesus fed the 5,000. He's talking about when Philip says there's not enough silver coins, and I'm paraphrasing here, there's not enough silver coins to feed that many people, to buy enough food. And then his other disciple says, well, this kid has 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, but what are we gonna do with that? That's not enough. And the Pastor Brett, used a wiffle ball and a wiffle ball bat to describe how Jesus threw a ball at him, at both of them, and they swung and they missed. That they did not believe what God could do for them. And I sat there and while I was listening to it, I thought how profound that analogy is and how much we do that in life. Here these disciples had witnessed miracle upon miracle upon miracle, and there's 5,000 men and women and children in addition to that wanting to see more miracles, wanting to follow Jesus, and the disciples are having a hard time believing that God can and that Jesus can make simple food. And don't we sometimes do that? I do that. I'm guilty of that. I've been sick for so long, and this has been a revelation to me. This sermon has been a revelation to me that He's thrown so many balls at me, and I've swung and missed so many times. Pastor Brett says, He's the creator of the world. He can't feed the people? Why am I looking towards the doctors and believing what the doctors say about me? That I'm not going to be healed? Why am I so stressed out about it without the answers when I should be looking to God for the answers. And at the end, Pastor Brett challenged us to close our eyes and to imagine what we have going on in our life and what is our response to God. What is going on? He's throwing a ball at us, and are we gonna swing and hit it over the fence and believe him for his promises, or are we going to swing and miss and believe what the world says, believe what the doctors say, believe what our bank account says? What are we going to believe? And he challenged us to close our eyes and then to stand up and confess what we would say to God, with nobody looking. Just say, what is our response to him? And here's my confession. I was living in the flesh, and I had brought 2 people to church that day, and I really wanted them to feel comfortable, and I didn't want to weird them out. So I thought I should not stand up and say what I wanted to say. And the first thing that came to my mind was, I believe, help my unbelief. And it just kept nagging in my head. I believe, help my unbelief. But I did not stand up. I did not say it. So many people stood up. So many people had the courage to stand up. And I did not. And I went home, and it just wouldn't go away. The thought that I didn't stand up. So I guess partly this is me standing up and saying, I believe, help my unbelief. And it's funny because I had an epiphany during this process that, later on in the Bible, it says that in Matthew 15, he feeds the multitude again. And the disciples still are, where are we going to get the food? They already witnessed him do it once, and they still are having problems believing. And I'm so guilty of this. And I know I'm not alone in this. I'm so guilty of believing that he can do such simple things. Why don't I believe that he can heal me when he's done it before? I had 2 brain tumors. He healed me of those. So I have a challenge for you, and I give you the same challenge that my pastor gave me. What are you going to say to God right now? Close your eyes. Whatever you're dealing with, I give you that same challenge. And swing the bat and don't miss.